Hello, once again, this is Brother Teacher. I have an interesting question uh, for you and topic, and even one that may be considered taboo, and that is the uh, so called crashing of the American society and or market, or even the apocalypse, some might call it. Um, some of you may not subscribe to this particular uh, notion that one day things are going to change drastically in the world and the society as we know it. Uh, Meaning that it's going to do a big 100% turnaround, and we're going to experience some very devastating things here on planet Earth, and more respectively, the United States, or what we call the United States. Um, this is not a conspiracy theory. These are facts. Now, wherever you find yourself on the pecking list or in your so called classifications, as it were, just become uh, more open, become more aware that things are not what they appear. As much as you may not want to believe and or accept that these things are happening and that these things will happen, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Uh, there used to be, once upon a time, classes, if you will, of people economically in our society: the poor, the middle class, and the extreme elite or rich people. Now, many of you can relate to this as middle class individuals, where you can see basically that the middle class is almost non-existent anymore. In that you are experiencing much of the pressure of life than ever before. For example, housing. Housing, many people of the so-called middle class have lost their homes because they haven't been able to pay the mortgages over the past decade or so. That's just one rough example. Uh, I want to explain something very basic to you. There are people that are in a place in our society, and I use that term society loosely because we don't ever really see these individuals and we don't really rub shoulders with these individuals because they sit in high places. And I'm talking about the elite. There are people that are rich that you never see in your grocery stores, you never see in your shopping malls or at the gas stations, because the vast majority of these people live in ivory castles or glass towers, or on an island somewhere, or in gated communities, and they have their food ordered and catered to their own homes, and they have their own private shopping malls and centers and places that they buy all of their necessities and even their wants. They don't shop amongst the common people. That's how the elite do it. And the extreme elite, you most definitely never see. And even these so-called rich people barely, if ever, see those individuals because they're in a different category or classification. Now, if the elite and the extreme elite, from a wealth standpoint, are far removed from the regular society, then where does that leave the middle class and the poor? You know, the poor, dirt poor on the very bottom. And then you have the working poor. And then you have the so-called middle class. So I'm going to touch on the poor, the working poor, and the middle class real quick and see if this resonates with you. The dirt poor are those people who you find living on the street, literally living on the street, pushing grocery carts, sleeping on church and courthouse stairways, in abandoned buildings, and sitting on the corner, drinking wine and beer, and smoking crack and marijuana, and panhandling. This is your dirt poor. Sleeping even under bridges. We already understand this, and bypasses and so forth. That's the dirt poor. Then you have the working poor. Those are the individuals that don't make enough money in one paycheck to pay their rent, utilities, phone, and food. Oftentimes the working poor have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the necessities: food or sustenance, rent, utilities, and anything else that they may need for their home and transportation to get to their job. Oftentimes they will use public transit system, or they might have an old broken down car that they have purchased from a used car dealership and what have you, and barely keeping gas in their car and so forth. Just sort of touching base on the working poor. These people will forever be in debt. These individuals will forever be working until the day they die. If some malady or some disease or cancer doesn't kill them in the early part of their lives, they're going to work their fingers to the bone until they die. That's the working poor. If they were to lose 1 week of pay, they could potentially be on the street. That's the working poor. They can be 1 paycheck away from being homeless. That's the working poor in America. Now the middle class, these individuals or people have high paying jobs for the most part. Many of them make as a base salary annually $100,000 to $200,000 or more per year. They have not one vehicle, but maybe 2 or 3 vehicles. They live in a nice home. They probably are members of certain organizations or groups that they're loyal to every year, be it some function for the missus or the wife of that family. She might be a regular PTA meeting or some sort of board member in her children's school, or she might even have a small business of her own. She might work out of home, and the father oftentimes has maybe a shirt and tie type of job, white collar, or he's been on a job 10, 15 years and he's looking forward to his retirement. And it could be the case for both of them. They both might be semi-retired. Now, what we don't understand and fail to understand is that we don't own anything. Now, I'm talking about the poor, dirt poor, the working poor, and now I'm including you, the middle class. We don't own anything. I did mention that the middle class have the opportunity to go on vacation pretty much 2 or 3 times a year if they choose to. But getting back to the fact that we don't own anything, many of us, we forget that when we came into this world out of our mother's womb, that we were naked. No clothing, no house, no car keys, no 401k, no retirement fund, no money in the bank, no gold or silver sitting somewhere in a vault, no security other than that of the people that we looked up to, being that parent, mother, father, or both. And that was it. But we were naked. Zero anything. So our lives literally depended upon those individuals that were caring for us. But at some point in time, as we began to grow, we began to pick up habits. We began to pick up customs and courtesies that were passed down from those people that were caring for us, i.e. our parents. And we were being indoctrinated by them and being taught, in the traditions and or the ideologies of our parents as to who we were, what we were all about, and what we were going to do in the future in terms of wealth and or success, as it were. But what your parents didn't tell you, and what your parents never fully wrapped their brains around, was the fact that we don't really control those things that we think we control. Everything is temporary. So when you pay off let's say your house, when you pay your house off, you say, well, my house is paid off, and you want to have bragging rights. So you tell your friends at dinner, yeah, brother or sister or girlfriend, our house is paid off now, so we own it 100%. Do you really? Not pay your property taxes and see if you own your house. If you don't pay property taxes, you don't own your house. The government does. So after you have paid your mortgage off completely and you become delinquent paying your property taxes, someone will come and take your house away from you, or what you thought was your house. You may have put $1 million into that house, but they will take it away if you don't pay your property taxes. Why? It was never yours in the first place. This is just something for you to think about. The same is true when middle class people walk around, stick their chest out, driving their big 2017 or 2018 SUV, or their Honda 500 or whatever motorcycle. They brag. They're riding down the street trying to parade around, letting people see that they've got something new and current or stylish. But do they own it? Is your car paid for? You might say, no, my car is not paid for, but it's mine. No, it's not. Miss your car payment and see what happens. Someone will be sending you a letter in the mail letting you know that you don't own that vehicle. You may have signed a contract or promised to pay every 2 weeks or once a month, but you don't own it. Now, once you pay that car note and you receive the title, yay! It's my car now. I own it free and clear. For real? Not register your car the following year and see what happens. If you don't register that car with the state and get that little sticker that goes on that license plate in the back, you'll see who owns that car. So why do you have to register your car in the first place? Have you ever asked yourself the question, why do I have to register my car? Just pause for 1 second, maybe a minute, and think about it. What is a registration? And it has the state of Pennsylvania, Omaha, Nebraska, Atlanta, Georgia, Georgia being the state, of course, Florida, California. It has the state in which you reside, in which you register that automobile. It's on the tag. First of all, you have to pay the state every year for that registration. So they're receiving money. They have money coming from you perpetually as long as you have in possession that automobile. So the state is always receiving that money for the registration. So why are you paying someone for a registration when the car is yours? If you own it outright, you paid for it completely, why do you have to pay someone anything after you have paid for it? It really lets you know who's in control. Don't renew your driver's license. You notice I said license. Permission to drive, to navigate, to travel on the roadways. Don't renew your license and see if you can drive that automobile. So you won't be able to operate that automobile that you paid for if, one, your registration is not current. Registration, right? Two, you haven't paid your license to be renewed if it expires. And three, if you don't have insurance. Insurance. Those three things, you're paying money to the state, license, tags, and to some insurance company, all for the so-called privilege of traveling across the roadways. So, my dear middle class friends, are you really doing that well when you say you own something, your home and your automobile, when after you pay for it and you don't pay those due services, if you will, it will all be taken away. So what's your advantage as a middle class individual? Not too much more than the poor person, working poor, and even the dirt poor. You see, when you're driving down the highway and you break the so-called ordinance or speed limit, that little man sitting over to the side with that radar detector called the highway patrolman or the state trooper pulls you over. You got paid, right? So being middle class doesn't benefit you, does it? And if you come out of the grocery store and you haven't put enough money in your meter, and there's a ticket on your windshield, being the middle class doesn't help you, does it? Now you might say, brother teacher, you're just ranting on for no reason at all. And we already understand these things. Even though you understand, are you really peeling off the layers of what I'm trying to get to you to understand? Really understand. And that is simply this. There are some things that we really should not be doing. There are some things that we do because we have been indoctrinated to do those things, or programmed, which is another word of choice some people like to use. But are the middle class, the poor, and the working poor all actually the same? That's what I'm getting at. I tend to say yes. How so? You see, where the rubber meets the road is that we're living in a society in the world where there's a small segment of our society that are evil, and they decided many hundreds of years ago that they had an agenda, and that agenda was to form a coalition. And the coalition's purpose was to have world dominance. This might be contrary to what you have been taught in elementary school, or what you thought you were taught in elementary school and in high school and junior and senior high school, or even college. But we are actually living in a matrix. Yes, I said it. You've seen the movie, Keanu Reeves, The Matrix. We are actually living in that matrix. And if you didn't get the author's message, get it now. Because that was not just for entertainment, because the person who wrote that movie was trying to get a message to us, the people. And that's not the only movie. I'm just referring to that one now. Things are not what they appear through your eyes, your lying eyes, your naked eyes. You see, this segment of our society that wants to have this coalition, they've been working on it for hundreds of years. And it is about to come to fruition. You see, the world in which we live, we call where we live the United States. But if you do your homework, you will find out that the United States is not a country. The United States is a corporation. It is a for-business corporation, doing business to make money. Corporation. It is traded in the stock market. That name, the United States. Okay, it is patented. Now, the country that we live in, for you all who are wondering, well, where do we live, Brother Teacher? We live in America. America is the actual country that we live in. So, oftentimes you hear people say, we live in the United States of America. Do your own homework and figure that out. Why America is attached to it. We actually live in North America, and the country that we live in is called America. But the United States is not the country. The United States, if you do your homework, is located in the District of Columbia. That's where the United States is, in the District of Columbia. It is not the other 50 states at all. Did I open up some empty compartment in your head and now filled it up a little bit? Do your homework. Do your research. And you will find that this is true. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. Some of you will go through a period of cognitive dissonance. Simply put, the belief systems that you have had and held so dear throughout your lives are being compromised by the things that I've just said to you. Some of you will say, BS. Where did this guy come from? It's always that way when someone presents the truth to you, or someone who comes down and give you some light when you're actually in darkness. Okay? You don't want to accept what is really apparent or obvious, because your belief system that you had all this long, even though it may not be the best thing that's going for you, you might still have your hard times, so to speak, but you're complacent, you're satisfied, you have decided to accept your present condition, if you will. And when anything new comes along, it means you have to change. Most of us don't like change. Change for many of us doesn't feel good, because it means that we're forced to do something now. We not only have to accept something intellectually and emotionally, but we actually have to set some things in motion when we change, especially when those changes are drastic. We don't want to change. But just because you don't want to change for the better doesn't mean things will get better without that change. I'm sure you've heard this before. If you keep doing the same things and you're expecting a different result, you're deceiving yourself. You're not going to get a different result when you do the same things repetitively over and over and over again. In other words, if you want to better your life, you've got to change your paradigm. If you're not willing to change that, then you're going to get the same thing or the same things that you've always gotten. So, where are we at? City folks, it may seem like I'm changing a little bit, but I'm really not. I'm still in the same grain. But city folks versus those people that are living in a rural community, there's a big divide. So I want you to understand this. I want to make sure that you are aware that you have options. I want you to understand that we're living in a world today that is about to collapse on top of us. Not just around us, but on top of us. Our current monetary system is about to crash. I can't tell you. I'm not an expert. I can't tell you that it's going to happen today or tomorrow or next week or next month. But I will tell you this, and if you look at a lot of financial analysts and other conscious individuals for face value, in other words, accepting the truth as you hear it, you will indeed understand the logic in what we're saying to you. And it's simply this. The United States in 1933 became bankrupt. The American people at the time were forced, under Roosevelt, who was the president at the time, to turn in all of their gold and silver. So the United States became bankrupt, and they no longer had any financial sovereignty. They were not solvent, in other words. So the United States could no longer lawfully say that they could pay debts. So later on, they created a system and they allowed a group, an organization called the Federal Reserve, to come into existence in the United States. I want you to understand this and listen to me very carefully. The Federal Reserve is not from the country that we call America. Pause for a second. You need to think about that. You can stop this at any time and think about it. The Federal Reserve was implanted in America. It is disguised as being representative of this country, but it is not. The Federal Reserve was giving permission to coin and to print money. Now, they print money at the drop of a hat anytime they feel like it, but it's not real money. Paper money is not real money. Gold and silver is real money. But mind you, in 1933, we went and became bankrupt. We did. So when the Federal Reserve came along later, I believe it was 1913, the IRS came into existence as well. And we think that we have to pay taxes on our wages. Why do we have to pay taxes on something that is our income? But they want to make us believe that we're paying taxes to build roads and to build schools and to pay our public servants and so forth. But that's not true. The so-called United States owes its allegiance to the crown, to the Queen of England, to the bankers, the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, and so forth. You see, every war that the United States has had for a long time has not been financed by the United States because the United States does not have the money to pay or finance wars. Why? Because of what I said in 1933. We are in debt. We are delinquent. We owe trillions of dollars to foreign interest. You already know this. I'm sure you know this is not brand new news. This is not brand new at all. You already know that we have a deficit in the United States, but the United States will quickly put its citizens in prison for not paying taxes. They will quickly put you in jail or prison for not paying something to the state. But they owe trillions of dollars to other foreign bankers. Why? They just keep on throwing the money back. In other words, every loan that they get, they can barely pay the interest on the loan for our wars. We have the war in Afghanistan, now, not too many years ago, Iraq, and actually we have wars in other parts of the world that they don't make us privy to in the local news because the local news is controlled by who? The United States. The government controls the media. The big corporations control the media. So when you're watching your local television news, it's been watered down. It's been tainted. It's being controlled. Free enterprise, private sectors, private news, independent news is going to tell you the truth. And they are not liked by the powers that be. But thank God for them. Thank God for YouTube. Thank God for the internet, because you have a lot of these people who are aware of what's really going on in the world, and they're trying to let the public know what's going on. Hopefully, you will grasp hold and govern your lives accordingly. Now, getting back to what I was going to say that you were not aware of was this. I spoke of people who lived in the city and people who lived in a rural area. If peradventure, I'm going to ask you this question. If by chance your food did not make it to the grocery stores, would you be prepared for an apocalypse? You see, it's easy for us, special middle class folks, in our arrogance, in our stuffy shirt, chest all poked out attitudes, to assume that, oh, excuse me, dear, there's no ground beef and ground chuck and steak in the freezer. I think I'm going to run down to the market and pick some up. What if the market didn't have any more food? What if those vehicles, methods, when I say vehicles, I'm not talking about literal trucks and cars and things like that, but the vehicle means the method by which they receive food breaks down. That connection, the logistics. What if the planes and the trains and the automobiles and the trucks and the ships don't bring the supplies to the grocery stores? Where does that leave you, city people? Do you know how to grow your own food? Do you have food that's already packaged, canned, frozen, that you've been storing away in the case of an emergency? Or do you only rely on Walmart? I'll pause a second. I'll let you think. Okay, I'm back. Now, I'm trying to get you to think. I learned a saying a long time ago. Prepare for war in time of peace. Prepare for war in time of peace. And that just simply means this. Don't be simply reactionary. Be pro-actionary. Know that there's always a possibility that something could happen. Know always that there's an eventuality that something is going to happen. And be prepared for when it does occur so that it does not catch you unprepared. For example, you have car or automobile insurance. For what reason? Just in case you're in an accident. You have property insurance. Why? Just in case the wind blows your windows out, blows a tree down and it crushes your roof, falls on your car or your neighbor's car, or you have water damage or fire damage in your home. But just in case. You have life insurance for what? Just in case someone dies. And you're not stuck with the burden of trying to raise money to put your loved one away, to bury them. You follow where I'm saying, where I'm going and what I'm saying right now? So would it not stand to reason, if you have those things in place, why would you not understand that you should have food stored away, along with water stored away, along with flashlights stored away, along with blankets and extra clothing stored away, along with other safety devices and safety equipment, maybe a backup generator, a gas generator in case your power went out, stored away, along with maybe a bug out bag for you and your family, stored away, along with maybe extra gasoline sitting several feet away from your home in a hole that you dug in the ground to avoid it setting the house or anything else on fire, but extra gasoline. Have you ever thought about these things? See, part of this is the science of military war. It's the art of war, in other words. So are you really getting what I'm saying to you right now? City folks, I'm targeting you. That's who I'm talking to. Are you prepared for an apocalypse? Are you prepared for the grid to go down? You ever watched the television show years ago? It might be in syndication. I don't know right now. It's called Doomsday Preppers, or just Preppers. These people are not preparing for something bad to happen just because it's a conspiracy theory. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. Now, getting back to the people who live in a rural area. Most farmers, or most people who live in a rural area, means outside of the city, they usually have a source of water, a well, a spring, a lake, that's right in proximity of where they live. They usually have their own food that's canned. They usually have access to water and generators and things like this because they're away from city life. They usually are preparing for something like this to happen 99.9% of the time. Are you seeing what I'm saying? And the other thing that I left out, which is very, 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 very important. Are you prepared to defend your family, their lives, if you had to, when this occurs? Because when people become desperate, as kind as some of these people may even be, when they are desperate, they would do desperate things. They would take desperate measures, and oftentimes they will pillage. They will come and steal to survive. And if they are not prepared for an apocalypse, so to speak, or for the economy to crash, if they're not prepared for it and they find themselves in despair and in desperation and in need of food for their families and themselves, what do you think they're going to get it if they can't find it in the grocery stores after they've broken in and they've stolen everything that they could possibly steal out of the grocery store to survive? It's going to be chaos. And once the grocery stores no longer have anything for them, guess where they're going to go then? They're going to go out into the communities and they're going to be breaking into other people's homes like yours and mine, trying to find shelter, security, if you will, food, clothing, and warmth. And they don't really care at that moment or at that point in time who they hurt or even kill to get what they need. So I hope that the things that I've said to you already resonate. I hope you get where I'm coming from. And I sort of jumped around just a wee bit. I jumped around. But it's really all the same message. So I'm saying this in my summary. The powers that be, the ultra wealthy, 1% of our population controls the world. Just in case you didn't know it. They do. They have an agenda. That agenda is one world government, dominance. And they're going to take over our communities, our cities, our states, and things are not going to be as you knew them. And this has been happening methodically for many, many years. And it's about to come to a head. Our economy is going to crash because our dollar has no value to it. Because the United States, or the federal government, if you will, continues to make money. We continue to rack up trillions of dollars in debt that we can never pay back. And they try to take it from the citizens through taxation. Okay? Now, the poor, the dirt poor, the working poor, and the middle class are actually all in the same class now. Because when the crap hits the fan, as they say, we're all going to be subject to military or martial law. So, Mr. Middle Class and Mrs. Middle Class, or who thought you was middle class, you're going to find yourself in the same class as the poor class. Wanting. You're going to be wanting. You're going to be in a position where you're going to be desperate. And you're going to be out here and you're not going to know how to navigate in our world because the reality or the paradigm has shifted. It has changed. It's no more that I'm going into the office today. That's not going to be a reality anymore. It's going to be, how do I survive? And you're going to see military tanks and personnel from the UN going up and down your streets. You're going to have a curfew. You're going to find people on the street running around in chaotic pattern, trying to find food, trying to find somewhere to hide. It's coming, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm telling you a fact. It's going to happen. It's happening as I'm speaking to you. It's just subtle right now, but it's building up to a great crescendo. But the point is, are you ready now? Are you getting ready now? And will you be ready when it manifests its head completely? I'm not saying this again to scare anyone. All truth is not good truth. It's not received well. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean that it's not true. The point of the matter is, what are you going to do about it? We're living in the last days, ladies and gentlemen. And you heard it from me. These are the last days. We have come to the point where we have graduated from slingshots and throwing sticks and stones. We have nuclear weapons all over the planet that can destroy the earth 1,000 times. We have GMOs in our food, chemtrails in the air. We have toxins in every aspect of our lives that's destroying us and causing cancer and disease and killing us at alarming rates. This didn't happen in the old days. All of this stuff is manufactured by man. We have the sexes has been confused. God made a man and a woman for each other. We have homosexuality. You have a man with a man and a woman with a man. Excuse me, a woman with a woman and a man with a man. That's against nature. Now, I know I'm going to get some backlash from this. And my homosexual, gay, lesbian, and transsexual visitors and those people who are watching this right now, maybe, I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking you at all. You don't hear me saying that I hate you. You'll never hear me say that. What I'm saying is this. There's an issue. It's not normal. A man and a man cannot create another human being. And a woman cannot create another human being. It might be comfortable to you. It might be all right with you to have a relationship with one another. I'm not beating up on you because of that. But I am saying this in this video here, that it's not normal. It's not nature. It's not the way it was intended to be. And if you just look around you, nature speaks for itself. You see it in the animal kingdom. Male and female. That's the way it was intended by Yahweh. So I'll leave that alone. And as I said, there's going to be many that's not going to like what I said. But just because you don't like or accept what I said doesn't mean that it's not true. And I've said that before, and I'm saying it again. All right? So we're living in the last days, as I said. And I'm hoping that you open your hearts and you open your eyes and start preparing right now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next year when it's too late. It's coming down on this earth. It's coming down on the United States, the so-called United States. The wrath of God is coming to this land. Will you be ready? This is Brother Teacher. If you have any questions and comments, I do look forward to them. And I will try to respond to all of them as much as I possibly can. And of course, you know me. Let them be in good taste. You can attack me if you want to. That's fine. I'm used to that. It's okay. They attacked Jesus, Yahshua. They attacked him for telling what? The truth. They attacked Muhammad. They attacked Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., all of the patriots in the past that's coming up to this present. And I'm one of the patriots of today. And I'm no one. I'm just another fellow human being, another man, your brother in Christ, so to speak. So I wish you all success. And I wish you life. I'm out.